Intelligence is proven by how many degrees you collect and how many theories you can't afford to test.
Nah. Intelligence is flipping failure into invoices.
All right. Welcome back. We are here with another episode of BILLINICO Commentary. Yes, and we're going to be talking about Joe Budden, the Joe Budden Podcast. And basically, they're having a conversation, right, about, who's intelligent. Are people like Donald Trump intelligent? They basically said he's dumb. And they reveal how they view intelligence and success, how that community disviews people that are from a certain class and how they don't, recognize that, these people have access to a level of information and knowledge just from association that, people from the lower classes don't. This doesn't mean that there aren't people that come from the quote unquote bottom that aren't intelligent, that don't have the ability to decipher information, that don't have access to certain knowledge or, books or the internet as well, right? This is the information age. It's just common sense that when you're in certain social circles, such as the elite, wealthy, you're just going to be privy to more. Now, you may not even be necessarily as intelligent as certain people that come from other socioeconomic classes, but just the sheer fact that information gives you a head start. So we're going to play some of the podcasts. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure you let me know what you think in the comments, and then we'll go from there.
People smart or dumb for that reason, because to me it's always about context.
Donald Trump.
See, and I don't think that's true.
Now, this is ironic. We have Mona from, I guess she's from the Joe Budden Podcast now, since she's officially a member, I guess. She was she has another podcast called Don't Call Me White Girl. You guys can check those podcasts out. This is still business. I'm not going to hate and, stop the shine. I'm going to use them as a case study because I want to review their demographic of people. Like I said, this is a certain group of Black people that think a certain way, that come from certain environments that we all may have come from, but that doesn't mean we all think the same. Some of us have decided to get off that Democratic plantation, the racial ideologies that they still hold up. They think that because they're Black, they have to all think the same. And of course, if you think differently, then what are you? You're a coon. You are trying to be white, et cetera, et cetera. These are the things that they label us or label people with that think outside of their small box. But for someone as, the way Mona, she speaks, no offense, and the things that she communicates and the questions she asks and, her inability to kind of complete thoughts at times, it's just ironic. And it really reflects the community, which is often led by a lot of women that are very loudly ignorant, because the woman is led by the communities that they represent are led by what? Majority of women. This is just data and statistics. Now, again, this community, they're gonna speak off emotion. They're not even gonna recognize the data and the statistics. The majority of them are single mother raised and single mother ran households. And they speak like this. So a person or a child, a young man could look at a Donald Trump and get inspired and say, you know what, I want to be an entrepreneur. This guy is rich. This guy is the president. This guy accomplishes so many things, but everyone around me says that is bad. So instead of replicating I'm not saying Donald Trump is perfect, but there are obvious things that you can replicate as a man. And in order to achieve certain things, you have to recognize what are the things that Donald Trump do. What are the things that Donald Trump does? What are the things that Donald Trump does is correct? And usually that takes a strong man to identify those things and convey those things to his children. And then that's how you build a strong community. because you're going to have strong men that become successful, become powerful, that can hold powerful positions and become wealthy. Isn't that the goal? You would think that was the goal, but that's not the goal for the Black community. The goal for the Black community is to convey victimhood, to convey ignorance, to be ran by women, to be led by emotions, the absence of logic. And again, I know there's going to be someone in the comment that's going to say, play the video, we don't want to hear you talk. No, you need to hear me talk. You need to understand what I'm saying. You need to run my video back, run this video back, rewind it, play my other videos, and you really need to start digesting what I'm saying so that you can make some moves in your life. And for the people that understand what I'm saying, salute to you. Make sure you go to BILLINICO.com and use code FEARLESS. Make sure you check out the stock market. And, I'm not a financial advisor, but, we got some great buys out here, especially right now, given what's going on in the market. But with that being said, let's play the video and let's listen to what wise Mona has to say.
I think not true. And this was my point that I made when we was having the conversation before about, we talking.
Have y'all heard him talk?
You could be.
So Ish is trying to articulate a talk or his point. He's trying to articulate his thoughts. And she's talking while he's talking because there's no reverence for intelligent men in the Black community. They don't respect true intelligence in the Black community. And Ish, and I'm only talking about these characters that they present on this public platform. I don't know these guys personally. I hope they're wise enough to not take the things that I'm saying as personal and that they're able to extract the information that I'm presenting and, the full context that I'm trying to use or paint. What Ish needs to recognize is this is his fault because he has succumbed to a lot of the Black liberal ideologies. He has allowed women in that community to feel like they are more important than they really are. Who wants to be led by a bunch of women when those same women say they want to be led by strong men? Yet they constantly work against the things that they claim that they want. So when you have a man like this who's able to articulate his thoughts to a certain degree and explain things and give full context about why Donald Trump is not unintelligent, she's going to interrupt him. And this leads to no progress. This leads to no growth in this community. There's a cycle of ignorance, a cycle of talking. And this is mostly what they do in the Black community. They talk, and if a Black man has a certain amount of wisdom to say something that is truthful, you're either going to have a liberal dude interrupt them, or you're going to have a woman who's most likely liberal interrupt them, and then the conversation goes nowhere. Nobody learns anything. No progress is made.
Smart in some area. Yeah. And you could be a total fucking Neanderthal in other areas. Right. That don't mean you dumb.
Right.
It's some people, like the analogy I gave, you could be a brain surgeon and know nothing about finance. That means you're not stupid, my nigga. You just are not knowledgeable.
So basically what he's saying, how can Donald Trump be dumb, according to you, when he has billions of dollars? He's held the presidential office twice. He has countless businesses that are successful. The fact is, people are going to say he's failed. The fact that he's failed and he ended up in this position after all those quote unquote failures shows he's intelligent. You have people that live in 1-bedroom apartments, never accomplished anything. Let's talk. You got people that their children's colleges aren't even paid for. This is something that the average man can achieve. There's people that don't even have $10,000 in their bank account. They can't handle an emergency if their water heater breaks. There's people that can't even articulate what it means to run a business, to raise a family, to build a community, let alone run a country, negotiate with other world leaders, negotiate trade agreements. These guys are fools. And this is the people that are leading the community. These are the people that are disseminating information to the rest of the people. And then you wonder why you don't get anywhere. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you can't argue this. The Black community's wealth is at the bottom. How would it not be if this is what you're going by, if this is what you're following? You're not going to make it. That's why they say by year 2050, the Black household will have a net worth of 0. Now, that's better than negative. At least it's not in debt, but that's crazy.
In that particular facet of life, that don't mean you stupid.
You could be an entrepreneur, know absolutely nothing about space.
I would love to.
Exactly.
I would
you
love.
could be a boxer and can't read.
I would love to hear.
You could be a boxer and can't read. So the thing about Mayweather is, let's not act like Mayweather's not supremely talented and gifted with his boxing skills, but he's also really intelligent because he's able to decipher what is right and what is wrong, even without reading. People are so stupid. They will hyper focus on one thing. And I'm not saying reading isn't important. Being able to read, isn't a good thing, obviously. But you have to recognize someone's entire profile and their other, traits, the way that they can comprehend things. Mayweather, the way that he was able to understand the business aspect and how to run his business is supremely intelligent. Supremely intelligent. To recognize that he needs to run the promotion, run his brand, own his talents 100% or as much as he could so he can control the deals and the cash flow and take more of the bag. You got people that can read all day in these liberal colleges, and they don't have the intelligence to make certain moves in their lives that can change their entire family. All right, so we're going to continue with the video.
What topic that Donald Trump has ever spoke on, what things that he's ever taken place in.
Investing in real estate.
Is this chick slow? Like, and they say this confidently, bro. Look at her nails, bro. Look at the nails. Look at how ridiculous. And I'm not trying to, Mona, sweetie? Come on. You a character. You're a character, sweetie. And they setting you up. Joe got another fall guy. Yeah, I said it. Listen, I know the business tactics. I know what's going on up there. You got a new fall guy. Mark Lamont Hill's a fall guy as well. He's the intellectual, political fall guy. See, the thing is, when you got people that are so confidently dumb, got that from Dame Dash, who called Charlemagne confidently dumb, they can do anything you need them to do. You put them on your platform, you're going to generate a lot of views because you're going to siphon their audience, their demographic, which expands your brand. You get them up there to be the crash dummies to say certain things. It keeps your platform engaging and exciting. Yeah, Melissa Ford up there, she was a woman. She brought the female dynamic up there. And I truly believe that was a case study that Joe was doing. And I believe he's doing more case studies, and he's realizing this is a great formula. Add certain characters to my podcast, bring a certain, conversation, a dynamic. These conversations are going to be able to come forth because of the new dynamics that these new characters add. And really, they're ignorant in their own ways. Even Mark Lamont Hill. Because Mark Lamont Hill, the Angela Rye thing was very revelating because you got these people that think they're so smart, but they're not that smart. And they're not really that intelligent, because if you're so intelligent, you would have enough sense to not go at Queen's Flip the way you did. If you're the pillar and you're leaders of the community, you wouldn't display yourself the way you did. But Joe knows this. Joe is the boss up there. Joe didn't get to where he is just by happenstance. The character that he presents, the jokey, liberal, that's not all he is. That's one aspect of who he is. He's very wise, very intelligent, very smart, and he knows what he's doing. Now you got Don't Call Me White Girl. Another female perspective, but she's a lot more vocal. Because she's vocal, she's going to say a lot more dumb things, even more dumb things than Melissa Ford said. I give Melissa Ford credit because Melissa Ford knows how to pick and choose her spots. Now, if she gets emotional, she's going to run her mouth and she's going to, talk herself off the ledge and look a little crazy. But Mona, she doesn't have that filter. She is going to say some crazy things that are just clearly dumb. And it's going to be great for views and great for conversation and great for content, because that's what this is all about at the end of the day. Content and views, making money.
And
Real estate and investing.
Okay, yeah, we just had to agree to this.
Okay, yeah, we're going to have to Bruh, let me ask Google. What's Donald Trump real estate? How much is Trump's real estate worth? Estimations from Forbes place the value of his real estate holdings at over $1.9 billion net of debt. Other estimates place his real estate and business holdings at least $1.3 billion or $1.1 billion. His total net worth is higher when including other assets like crypto, stocks, and other business ventures. So his total estimated real-time net worth is close to $6.9 billion. Now, if we ask Mona, do you think Jay-Z is smart? She's going to say, yes, of course Jay's smart. Look what he's become. Jay-Z's net worth is $2.6 billion. So that's not even half of Donald Trump's net worth. But she's confidently saying that Donald Trump is not intelligent. Now, back to Dame Dash, what he said. You sound confidently dumb or confidently stupid. I forgot what he said, but this is the things that people from the community say, which are clearly wrong, clearly unintelligent. But these are the loudest voices in the community. And unfortunately, this cycle is going to continue in these places. You're going to have people that break out, listen to people like me, understand what I'm saying. And that's a blessing. That's why I do this. That's why this is a value. That's why I can make one piece of content such as this and I can leave it here for years and years, months, days, whatever. And it's here. At any point, someone can listen to my video and extract the value and take that and apply it to their real life. And they can say, you know what? I did learn from something and I saw an actual change in my real life. And that's what we do. That's why I do it for. This is for predominantly Black men. And I don't mind if women listen. If you have a good heart and a good spirit and you want to help the young men in your community, maybe you have a nephew, maybe you just have a son. Shoot, maybe you have a husband that needs to hear certain things. A lot of times, wise Black men that speak this way target solely Black men. And I understand that completely because it starts with the men. And this isn't only for Black men. I don't mind what race listens to this, but I'm letting you know as a Black man or so-called Black man, I am, trying to appeal to a certain group of people. But if the women have truly good hearts and good spirits and they want to put this information and they want to fight their programming to do the opposite, such as speak like Mona, refer them to some content like this or similar, whatever can help put you in the right direction. Because when you think better, you do better. And when you do better, you have more power, you have more money, you have a better life, better quality of life. So
Disagree. Right.
So
'Cause that's
I will
crazy.
also make it.
that's crazy. That's crazy. She ain't say no intelligent thought, no rebuttal. She's just saying, you really think he's smart? He's dumb. That's crazy. That's literally what she said. She hasn't articulated any point with rationale, logic, data, facts. She's just saying things.
Distinction.
How much failure that motherfucker had, he learned from all the fucked up ass small mistakes he made. He's a
File.
Oh, a lot.
Yeah. So then why
But
is
he's,
it all,
but he's known as a
Yeah,
terrible
drop the name.
businessman. But no, he's not.
He's the president.
Yeah, but sure, but he still was known as a terrible businessman. Actually, a con man.
Do you know how confidently dumb you sound?
You're supposed to learn from your mistakes and failure. That's how life works, Mona. I quote, Michael Jordan said that he learned how to become great because he took so many shots. This is the greatest basketball player of all time. He was cut from his high school basketball team. If someone told you, you know, this guy who was cut from his high school basketball team, they looked at Michael Jordan and they said, no one knew who he was. And they said, he was cut from his high school basketball team. Someone like Mona, who I guess highlights failures, would say, yeah, he's a loser. And then everyone else that knows who he is, knows his complete story, would say, what? That is the greatest basketball player of all time. Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. He failed. He also failed to Detroit Pistons many of times. He couldn't even get to the championship. But if you take a step back and you look at the entire picture, you look at it from a complete view, you will see that Michael Jordan became the greatest basketball player of all time. And he wouldn't have done that without failing. When you rode a bike for the first time, Mona, when your father or your mother taught you how to ride a bike, if that happened, you would have learned through natural steps that you're going to fail at first, but your parents are going to show you, keep going, keep trying, keep practicing, and then you become better. And then you know how to ride a bike. And you wonder why this community is unable to achieve anything when they're talking about failures as if that's a bad thing. Now, ironically, the demographic that highlights a successful person's failures act like they never fail, act like they know everything, but end up like failures. I repeat, you have a demographic of people that highlight successful people's failures, act like they never failed, and end up like failures. Isn't that the ironic part?
Bum. His
That's
father.
what you
His
learn from.
father
What you
had.
learn from, Mom?
But let's really talk.
Look, the men are speaking. That's what you learn from. See, the men have logic. Ish and Ice have logic. They are speaking from logic and rationale. She's just talking. And these are conversations that happen in grandma's house. Well, when the families were together, when it started getting ratchet, when the women started getting more and more vocal. And this is where you end up. Women over talking to men, talking about nothing, not making any points, wasting time. Why is she louder than two grown-ass men, by the way? No? No one finds that interesting?
Fuck it. The father was in the real estate.
She's saying, let's talk, like F it, like she's about to make some grand point. And then she's going to further prove why he's successful, by the way. She thinks she's going to prove why he's unintelligent. She's just going to further prove why he actually is intelligent. Listen to what she says.
So you're talking about somebody, your father basically laid the blueprint. He switched it up.
So your father laid the blueprint. How do you build intelligence, people? By studying something, having an example of it, learning, having a blueprint. being able to follow the blueprint. What blueprints were left for you, Mona? What blueprint have you followed successfully? And maybe you have. Maybe you followed a podcast blueprint that was laid out for you. So are you unintelligent for following a blueprint that was left for you and on how to run a podcast or be a successful podcaster? It takes intelligence to be able to follow a blueprint that was laid out for you. And it's not a bad thing that your parent laid out something for you so that your child or your children can have a better life. That's what we're here for if we have children. That's what you're supposed to do. That's not even in the Bible. You know, a father leaves his children inheritance. Just because that's not the norm in your community or what you're used to, you know, you need to do some soul searching and realize what you're valuing versus what actually should be valued.
The father was in residential ghetto shit, no apartments, right?
The father was in residential ghetto. The father was in providing residence for a certain demographic of people. This is a fact. People are butthurt because whether it was low-income housing, apartment buildings, etc., he was providing what they could afford, a certain demographic. It is what it is. You get what you pay for. He made a profit, and then it is what it is. They didn't commit any crimes. They did what was allowed within the law and provided what was allowed within the law. The black people that made more money didn't live in those type of buildings. I hate to tell you that, even back then. See, they like to paint this picture that all black people were broke. All black people were in the projects. There were black families that stayed together. There were black people that owned homes, that lived in suburbs, or that lived in houses in these same neighborhoods. They didn't have to succumb to live into these project buildings. You know who did, though? People that come from her background, typically, or from what she's projecting. People that come from single mother homes. And it is what it is. It's up for you to become a bigger person and realize you didn't come from someone that gave you the blueprint like Trump, who had a father. You came from someone that gave you nothing, like a single mother. I repeat, you didn't have a father that left you something. You had a single mother that left you nothing. And that's why you end up living in those types of same things that you're talking about. More irony.
But still, if y'all had a dad that was in real estate, when you started, would you have that many bankruptcies? Would you fuck up as much as he did? That boy is dumb.
Wait. Listen. Business is business. There's so many different factors to running a business. You have macro details and you have micro details. Macro effects, micro effects. There could be a supply and demand with your manufacturing items or products, building materials, the economy, war, weather issues. There's so many factors and I'm not going to get into why he filed bankruptcy, but bankruptcy is something that is allowed by the U.S. government to protect your assets. So if one business fails, you could file bankruptcy with that, and your other separate ventures are safe. And it actually makes perfect sense. You liquidate all those things. People act like he just cleared everything up and then he's good to go. It's not necessarily how it works, because something failed. That venture or this side business failed and it's no longer running. But the thing about America is, because of capitalism, you're able to create another business and keep going. Your father could have did the same thing, Mona. That's the question. Why are you criticizing Trump for using what's allowed in this land when your parents or your father could have did the same thing? It sounds more like jealousy to me.
He's an idiot.
Is part of the game.
He made bad decisions. He shouldn't.
I would love if there was someone highlighting her bad decisions or her parents' bad decisions the way she's highlighting his bad decisions right now. It just doesn't make any sense, man. They're so confident And the dumb things that they say, it's ridiculous at this point.
They got into Atlantic City because it was a bad idea.
Bankruptcies are good. Bankruptcies are great business decisions.
Yes.
Because
You got to speak to her like she's a child, like he's speaking to a little girl. And she says, yes. This chick goes out into the world thinking she has a certain level of intelligence, autonomy, power. Yet she doesn't understand basic business tactics. She don't even understand basic fatherly duty. You know, it's crazy.
what it allowed him to do was not pay his vendors, not pay the contractors, not pay all of these people.
It's not these guys, even the way because they're still victimizing. It's just still that woe is me. Oh, he didn't pay anyone. And listen, if the business failed, you can't pay anyone because that business failed. It is what it is. They're going to have to do what they have to do to get it out of the courts if he owed them money, if he signed a contract. That's a fact. I think we're going to end it here soon, but let me play a little bit more and see what they say.
The people of Jersey, they did that too.
There's no good people in Jersey, but your point's well taken.
Thank you.
That's why you here to clean it up. Yo, but again, from a business perspective, because I think it's weasel shit, but from a business perspective, if I can run up $300 million worth of debt and then file a document that says, yo, I'm
That's not what happened. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. Let's do some research real quick in real time. So, how vendors were affected. We're using ChatGPT. Contractors often took losses, same way he took losses. Investigations from Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and US Today found hundreds of contractors, plumbers, electricians, painters, architects were paid late, paid less than agreed, or went unpaid entirely after restructuring. Many accepted 20 to 60% of the original invoice to avoid litigation. You could have went through litigation, by the way. This strategy relies on the fact that small businesses often cannot afford years of legal fights, so they settle. So, being a businessman, you have to recognize what you're getting into. The penalties, the risk, how much leverage you have, how much leverage you're willing to give up, the personal reputation of the person you're working with. These are all things that you have to do your due diligence. That's why we have insurance. That's why we have attorneys, you know. So again, if his business fails, what is he supposed to do besides file a bankruptcy? That doesn't make any sense. If he can push his debts down to the side or push them or decrease the amount, and decrease the amount that he's owed by settling, why wouldn't he use it? Especially, okay, if you're a business, okay, they want to bring up the casinos, right? If you're a business and you want a contract for someone doing a casino, you know this is a high-risk industry. So you should know the casino could fail and I may not get paid on time or whatever. So this is why do we have down payments, direct deposits, etc.? Like, you negotiate your terms for your business. It just is what it is. It sounds like people were just mad because he couldn't pay and he had to do what he had to do in order to increase his other ventures. Now, what about the people that got paid successfully? What about the countless people that he did employ because he filed bankruptcy? What about the people that were paid handsomely from his success? No one talks about that. The vendors that won, you're not going to hear them. It's always the people that lost and continue to lose or highlight the losses that you hear the most. And I'm surprised Ish didn't say that, but Ish is on his half liberal, half businessman stick right now. So
bankrupt now, and I don't have to pay $300 million of debt.
Right.
That's a great business decision that he was taught.
Right.
So his father, and I don't like Donald Trump, and it sounds like I'm
I
capable.
know.
why do you have? I'm gonna end it there. But the fact that you got to say I don't like Donald Trump, and it sounds like I'm caping for him, bruh. Explain what it is. You're not winning any points by saying that. You actually lose points by not being man enough to stand on your own. And you got to make these disclaimers to a community that is way too emotional and way too invested in liking someone as opposed to just getting the facts and the truth. With that being said, we're going to head out. Peace.